Wrote his name and number on her hand.
But the perfect first date turns into the perfect nightmare.
You have nothing to connect anybody to this event. We're going to have to apply pressure to get any semblance of the truth.
Then, a desperate husband takes his own life. Or did he?
When police arrive, they see a dead man lying on the floor and a weapon next to him.
Suicide is one of the easiest ways to cover up a homicide.
Can Lieutenant Joe Kenda get to the truth?
We don't know what happened here, but we need to investigate. Is this what it is said to be? We live in a free society. You're free to do whatever you wish. And sometimes what you wish.
It's Saturday night. An 18-year-old Tyrone Larry is looking sharp.
A friend wanted to throw a party. There was going to be a lot of girls there. And everybody thought it'd be a good idea just to, all get together and enjoy ourselves.
Tyrone's little brother Tim arrived at the party a half hour earlier.
We was going to go there and, mingle. There was a good amount of people there already.
This was a big party. There were a lot of kids there. And they were crammed into a 2-bedroom apartment.
A lot of people drinking. People was just talking, dancing and stuff like that.
Tyrone spots his brother Tim in the crowd.
That's good. He was there talking to some girls. He had 2 girls on both sides.
Where did these ladies go?
There's some girls I met at the bar.
That's my little bro. That's a big thing.
It wasn't 10 minutes after that they heard the shot.
Everybody hit the deck. Tyrone was scanning the crowd, trying to figure out what was going on.
And he looked over into the living room area where he observed a bunch of people kind of gathered around somebody laying on the floor.
Come on, Tim. Tim, come on, man.
I already said my brother Timothy, he was shot.
Tim, come on, man. Get up, man.
I rushed over there to see was he okay, was he really shot? He wasn't moving. He couldn't really say anything. He was just holding his chest. I was telling him to hold on, just be all right.
Okay, I'm here. What's Miss Tyrone?
Just keep him as comfortable I can, just let him know I was there.
Call an ambulance!
Across town, Lieutenant Joe Kenda and his wife Kathy are saying their goodbyes.
We were at a dinner party with a bunch of our friends in anticipation of the coming holidays. Oops. I was surprised we stayed there as long as we did before something came up, as they say.
At least you made it through dinner.
Kenda arrives on the scene, where Detective J.D. Walker briefs him on what they know so far.
So we got 16-year-old kid, single gunshot wound to the chest. Do you know who he is? Timothy Peart.
Timothy Peart was only a sophomore at nearby Sierra High School.
When Lieutenant Kenda got on the scene, I explained the chaos that we had.
So who are these people? Neighbors? Witnesses. They were all upstairs with the kid when he was shot.
He was attending a party in an apartment with a number of other individuals, most of whom had fled the area, and no one in the crowd wishes to be identified now.
So a fight breaks out and someone pulls a gun. That's what it looks like. Let's go inside.
Once inside, Kenda and Detective Walker rethink the theory that the shooting stemmed from a fight.
It is obvious there was a party going on. There's beer cans and malt liquor bottles and Solo cups all over the place. But the furniture is in order. Nothing is broken. There is no evidence of a struggle.
This must be where the EMTs found him. Not a lot of blood. It's not good.
If he's not bleeding externally, it's because he's bleeding internally. That normally means major organ damage. almost assuredly is fatal.
Hoping to get a clearer picture of how the shooting went down, Kenda and Walker turned their attention to one of the eyewitnesses.
Thank you for talking to us. I understand how upset you must be.
Lieutenant Kenda and I went to speak to Cheryl Harris, who was one of the persons at the party.
Did you know the victim?
Yeah, I mean, kinda. I just met him today.
According to Cheryl, she and her friend Crystal Trujillo were at the mall around lunchtime when Tim and his friend Arthur Jones sauntered up.
Hi.
Hi, so what's your name?
Cheryl.
Cheryl.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Hey, nice to meet you. I'm Tim.
They didn't really thought us up as ladies, man, and if they go to the mall all the time together and see who talk to most girls and stuff like that.
Cheryl almost immediately had a crush on him.
What are you guys doing tonight?
I don't know why.
My boy's having a party and you should come.
Yes, in my place, y'all motion.
Maybe.
Do you have a pen I can borrow?
Yeah.
There's something about this that seems so teenage boy dashing to me. He wrote his name and number on her hand.
So I hope to see you there.
Okay. I will. Maybe.
Maybe?
Yeah.
Alright.
Okay.
See y'all later.
Bye.
Keep this. You gonna get it back at the party? Yeah. Alright.
What happened at the party?
We came to the party, and at first I couldn't find him.
There's lots of people there. Everybody's drinking, so they too drink.
Timothy did show up, much to Cheryl's happy pleasure. He kind of made a beeline for Cheryl. And so they were flirting to beat the band, and that was making things more fun.
The party was loud and there was music and people were talking and laughing and dancing and drinking. And she looked away for a moment from him. She hears a loud noise. She turned and she sees the victim shudder and fell down directly to the floor.
Then I heard Arthur yelling. I couldn't believe it.
Did you see who shot Tim?
It happened so fast.
It's always possible for witnesses not to see the shooter in a noisy, crowded party.
Did Arthur see him?
Yeah, probably he was right there.
You know where you find him?
Yeah, maybe. Probably he lives here. His roommate, Bobby Dickerson, is right over there. He was the one DJing.
No, thank you.
I already told you, man. Tim was my homeboy. I ain't had nothing to do with this.
Man, we're just trying to help. So why don't you help us out and tell us what happened?
Alright, well, me and Art, we moved in together 3 days ago. So we decided to throw a little party.
They were very excited because this was the first apartment they'd had together, Bobby and Arthur.
He's busy being a disc jockey.
Now out of nowhere, we hear this bang.
He said he looked out the window and he observed two black males running wearing red coats and one of them carrying a gun.
Why would they want to hurt Timothy and not anyone else in this apartment? We have to know what happened, and we don't know that yet. We're at the scene of a shooting, but we don't know what happened here, but we're going to have to apply pressure to these people to get any semblance of the truth.
According to apartment resident Bobby Dickerson, the shooters were two African-American men in red jackets. But that's not all. According to Bobby, they purposefully targeted the victim, Timothy Peart, as part of a deadly gang dispute.
It was them damn Bloods. That's who it was. That's who did this, and that's the people who shot my homeboy.
Bobby was nervous telling us about the Bloods. The Bloods started in Compton, California as a protection gang against the Crips.
The Crips' color is blue. Their arch enemy are Bloods. That street gang wears red.
Looking at Bobby Dickerson and the other eyewitnesses, Kenda and Walker quickly put two and two together.
The kids all were wearing blue.
They've got a bandana sticking out of their pocket, or they got a blue baseball hat.
Everybody at the party was holding blue cups.
In the 90s, that was the time in Colorado Springs when the gang infestation was just getting started.
There were some guys that were coming in from the coasts, but there weren't many of them.
See any faces, any names?
I just seen red. You know it was trouble.
Other witnesses from the party confirm Bobby's story that the Bloods were behind the shooting.
Do you know who these guys were?
Slobs did.
Slobs is a derogatory term for a blood member.
With the eyewitness statements in tow, Kenda and Walker's next move is to track down the two Bloods who are allegedly responsible for the shooting.
We are going to make some attempt to either find them or dispel this theory.
Would you come on and show us where you saw the shooters?
All right, man. They both walked out to back this way.
Bobby Dickerson says that's where they ran. We set a perimeter based on how far you can run, and we searched for guys that match that description.
I'll put up a description of the suspects. Let's also talk to neighbors. Span out about 3 or 4 blocks.
The grass is high, the grass is wet. He says that's where they ran, but there isn't a mark in the grass.
Police don't find any footprints indicating the suspect's direction, but Kenda hopes there may be something else left of their trail.
When people commit shootings, they tend to throw guns away, so they dispose of the evidence.
Anything?
Sir, we couldn't find a thing.
All right. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
No weapon is found. No anything is found. Mr. Dickerson's story is getting weaker by the second, and I explained that to him.
Look, Bobby. None of your downstairs neighbors saw anybody in red go by. The only people telling me that are you and your friends.
Yo, man, I'm telling you, it was some Marquette slobs.
Dickerson's demeanor is one of evasion. He doesn't want to talk to me.
All right, then. Any Bloods in particular have a beef with Timothy? Anyone, Bobby?
Yo, look, I told you everything, all right? What else do you want from me?
He's not any part of this, and he's as innocent as a driven snow. Well, probably not, Mr. Dickerson.
Take him to homicide. Put him in a box.
Let's go.
As police wrap up the crime scene, Kenda is certain the story about the Bloods is bogus. But why would the partygoers lie? And what was the real motive behind the shooting?
In all of the interviews we've conducted so far, no one has suggested that there's any reason for Timothy to be hurt.
We could not determine that Timothy had any problems with any other person.
That just doesn't make sense to me.
Hoping the victim himself can provide the answers, Kenda and Walker head to the hospital. But the news isn't good.
Hi, we're here to check on the shooting victim.
I'm sorry, he didn't make it.
Take that in for a moment. You know, a 16-year-old boy, 16. He's never going to see 17.
Has his mother been notified?
Yeah, she's here. She's down in the waiting room. She's upset, but says she wants to talk to the police.
Thank you.
She was really torn up. My mother took up really hard. We was very close. Timothy was a loving person. He would take his shirt off his back for you. He was like the heart of the family. It was really difficult on everybody, though.
Ma'am, we're very sorry for your loss. We're going to get to the bottom of this.
She went on to explain that Timothy is a nice kid. He does well in school, and he's a good son. He does have friends of his who claim to be Crip members, but he's not part of their lifestyle.
Can you think of anyone that did this to your son?
I know exactly what happened.
I don't know, Timothy.
She tells us that earlier that night. She was on her way to work. Timothy asked her if he could go to the party.
Come on. It's Arthur and Bobby's new apartment. It's a big deal for
I don't
Arthur.
want them getting you into any kind of trouble.
But Mom, it's not like...
I said no, Timothy.
When I came home from work, I seen policemen everywhere outside.
That's correct.
And that's when Arthur came up to my window.
What is it?
I shot my bro.
Arthur comes up to her. He is crying. He is very distressed, and he says, I shot Timothy.
What are you
I'm so
saying?
sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
That is a critical moment. We've gone from guys in red coats to a grieving mother who names the shooter as Arthur Jones. It's his best friend who lives in the apartment where Timothy died.
She described to us that they were like brothers. They hung out together, they were inseparable.
Oh, my. It's not a gang thing now, is it?
What happened to Arthur?
He ran off. You gotta find that boy.
Do you know where he went?
He went to Sabin Junior High School. He's gonna kill himself, is what he said.
I've got a bolo for him.
We put out his name, his physical description, a bolo, be on the lookout. We want this individual for murder.
Detective Walker to dispatch.
He is armed and considered to be dangerous and possibly self-destructive.
We sent uniformed officers over to the school to check for Arthur, but he was not located.
With another young life on the line, Kenda heads to homicide to put the pressure on Arthur's roommate, Bobby Dickerson.
Bobby, I know it's not the Bloods. Arthur did it. He told Tim's mom he's gonna kill himself.
I told you I don't know anything.
Look, Bobby, right now we're just trying to save Arthur's life. Now, where the hell is he?
Okay. Yo, all right, I can tell y'all some of the places he hangs out at.
You're not gonna tell us, you're gonna show us. Let's go.
We took Bobby and drove places to see if we could locate him.
Every place we've checked so far, we've had no result. No one has seen him, hadn't been there, or so they say.
Yo, right there. That girl. She's tight with Art. Pull over.
Bobby identifies the young woman as Sarah Barnes, a close friend of Arthur's who is walking home from a nightclub.
When we stopped, let Bobby out of the car, and he went to talk to this female.
Yo, hey, have you seen Arthur? I really need to talk to him.
When Bobby came back to the car, he had a tear in his eye.
And the news is exactly what no one wanted to hear.
The street says that Arthur's killed himself. As he said he would, he's dead. Is that what's really true? We have finally come to the level of truth. It's no longer a gang retaliation act that results in the death of our young victim. It's his best friend, Arthur Jones. His reaction to this is to confess to the victim's mother and then to threaten suicide.
Kenda and Detective J.D. Walker have searched high and low for Arthur. But when they encounter Sarah Barnes, she explains that word on the street is that Arthur has already killed himself.
She knows what she's heard. I'm not interested in what you've heard. I want to know what you know. So where is he dead?
How did you know that Arthur would have died?
Well, I was at Club 9.
Sarah says that she's in a bar, which we all know is a source of the absolute truth.
I was talking with this guy who heard that Arthur was going to kill himself. And then sometime later, he heard that he did.
So you heard it from a friend who heard it from someone else.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So what does that mean? Nothing. We will continue that search until we find him.
Later that night,
Can you be in my office, please?
Kenda gets a surprising break from one of the witnesses at the party.
Lieutenant, this is Crystal.
All right, thank you.
Crystal Trujillo shows up at the station.
So, Crystal, you're the girl that went to the party with Cheryl Harris, right?
That's right.
So what brings you here?
I told my statement to the officers earlier tonight, but I sort of lied.
She apologized for not coming forward. She said she was scared. She didn't want to be labeled as a snitch.
It was just all that crib stuff. I didn't want those people to see me talking to the cops. That's why I came here.
She's not aware that these are wannabe kids and they don't engage in that behavior like the real gangs do, but nonetheless, she had a reason to not come forward immediately.
I saw the whole thing.
All right. Tell me from the beginning.
Cheryl and I go to this party, right?
She said that they got there about 9 o'clock. They were standing around. She said that Arthur walked up to her.
Hey, girl, what you think that red dress on? Don't you know this a Chris party?
But I like this dress.
All right. Well, I'm just saying, because my boys and I might not appreciate it like I do.
I guess you'll just have to protect me. Okay.
All right, I like that.
She said Arthur had been drinking, but Arthur seemed like he's pretty intoxicated to her.
She continued to dance a little bit and kind of stand around and socialize. Arthur was facing Tim, and they were kind of playing around, like play slapping, play pushing.
What's up with that red?
Hey, look, man, don't worry about my girl, all right? I know she a blood and all, but don't be causing her no problems, all right?
I don't know about that.
There was no argument, there was no dispute. They were just playfully interacting with each other.
You're not gonna do nothing if I do.
Oh, hey, man, you ain't so tough, man.
I'm scared of you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, got that bad baby right here, you know what I'm saying?
All of a sudden, Arthur had this gun out.
You don't even know what to do with it.
She saw Arthur with a gun and start just kind of squirming around with it.
I ain't worried about you.
And he's laughing and twirling the gun around his hand, and boom.
And his friend just went down. And Tim was lying there, and he wasn't moving.
Arthur was down there with him and screaming.
Oh, man, I can't get up, man.
Arthur is totally panic-stricken, and then he runs off.
Get out of here! Get out of here!
Don't wake up!
We think Bobby was the one that initiated the Bloods, committed this crime.
When the police show up, don't nobody mention Art's name, all right?
They know Arthur Jones. They want to protect him from the police. So lay this off on some Mr. X that ran off into the darkness, rather than Arthur Jones.
It doesn't matter, sadly, that it was an accident. You don't get a do-over.
The reckless behavior, it made it even more tragic that it took this life. They're really good friends. They're the best of friends.
They'd been really good friends for a long time, and when Arthur said, I killed my bro, he was being serious. They were like brothers.
Everyone in patrol, everyone in investigations is beating the bushes for Arthur Jones. He says he's going to kill himself.
We already have a young teenager that is deceased. What we don't want is 2 lives to be lost.
Thankfully, the next morning, the search for Arthur Jones ends peacefully.
Happily, Arthur did have an aunt and uncle that stopped him from ending his own life.
It took 3 hours for the aunt and uncle to talk to Arthur to get him to turn himself in.
On August 28, 1993, Arthur Jones pleads guilty to criminally negligent homicide and is sentenced to 2 years in prison.
I forgive him. He didn't mean to do it. It was an accident. I know it was.
For the rest of his days, he will think about killing his best friend. Timothy should still be with us, but he's not. That in itself is worse punishment than anything a court could provide.
Coming up, a case that seems open and shut is anything but.
He didn't witness it, so the obvious question for this caller is, how did you know this was a suicide?
It's early morning, and Lieutenant Joe Kenda is called to a residence on the west side of town.
Detective J.D. Walker was at the scene.
So we got... Well, they're saying it's a suicide.
He informs me that patrol was summoned to this address as the investigation of a suicide.
Who's the victim? William Krudowski, he was 32.
The police respond to all reports of death to determine method and manner.
He was married to Holly, his wife, who was only 19.
Here's an older man married to a fairly young girl.
I think that there was a father figure between William Gradowski and Holly Gradowski.
Let's take a look.
Inside, Kenda and Walker find Jay Perez, the Gradowski's roommate and the man who called 911.
I'd like to ask you a few questions if you don't mind.
Sure.
He said Bill and Holly Gradowski only lived there about 2 to 3 weeks. They were living there to help Jay with his rent.
Can you walk us through what happened this morning?
Well, I was awakened by some noises. Sounded like muffled yelling.
He didn't witness it. He is reporting what Holly said, that her husband had killed himself. So that's the story we have at this particular moment.
How long have they been married?
How long? I think about a year.
Do you know where she is now?
I don't know. Just hope you find her soon. She's just a kid, and she sounded completely freaked out.
And real death, not movie death, real death is ugly. It's beyond ugly. So for her to act out of traumatization and flee from this would be relatively normal.
What do you know about Bill? Was he depressed?
I haven't known him all that long. I just know that the guy had a bad coke habit. I think he was kind of at the end of his rope.
He is someone who has had a shady past. He's had a lot of run-ins with the law.
He's a minor drug dealer, just sells small amounts of cocaine and ekes out some money from that.
Holly and Bill didn't even have a car. They didn't have a place to live. They basically were looking for handouts.
It's, about a month ago, Bill got worried. He thought the cops were gonna bust him.
William uses cocaine. Cocaine induces paranoia. William tells his wife, Holly, if they catch him with this much product, he's going to jail for a long time.
I'm not going back to prison again, man. No way.
Holly decides to resolve this threat by taking the cocaine and flushing it down the toilet. Brilliant.
But Polly didn't fully understand the ramifications of her actions.
It was not her property to flush. The drug supplier supplies the drugs. As Bill deals out that cocaine, he pays back the drug supplier.
What did you just do?
I was trying to help.
What the hell were you thinking?
You said the cops.
The cops! Where do you think we can get the money to pay my guy back? I'm a dead man. I'm a dead man!
Drug suppliers do not sue you. They do not send you a nasty letter. They come to where you live and they fill you full of bullets. William knows it. Now the lovely Holly has almost guaranteed his murder.
They needed to lay low because they knew that people would be out looking for them.
After learning of Bill's predicament, Lieutenant Kenda and Detective Walker can see why he might have wanted to end it all.
If all of this stuff is piling up on Bill Gradowski, he knows that the only way he's going to get out of this is hit rock bottom. And rock bottom could be suicide.
Well, I appreciate your help. There'll be an officer in to talk to you in a minute.
Inside the guest room, Kenda and Walker encounter the lifeless body of Bill Grudowski.
We see him lying on his back.
Damn. It's a hell of a way to kill yourself.
We also see a sawed-off shotgun that's laying next to him.
There's blood everywhere. It's on the furniture, it's on the carpet. They see a big gaping hole in his chest. There's no doubt that he's been shot.
But when Kenda and Walker take a closer look, they get a few surprises.
We roll the body over, and when we do that, a pistol falls out of the inside breast pocket.
Hey, look at that. That's just weird.
Why would Bill Grudowski shoot himself with a sawed-off shotgun and not the pistol that he had in his pocket?
It was a big red flag to them because they thought, this just doesn't make sense.
But the biggest red flag of all comes when they get a look at Bill's back.
They see that he was actually shot in the back.
You would expect the entrance wound to be in the chest.
He has been shot at extremely close range between his shoulder blades with a shotgun. And unless he works for Cirque du Soleil, he didn't do that. This isn't a suicide, it's a murder.
Holly was in the bedroom at the time that Bill Grudowski was shot. We needed to find Holly.
Where is the charming Mrs. Grudowski? Because she ain't here right now.
Originally, the call came in that a person in this apartment had taken his own life. Our examination of the scene indicates that that is not the case.
Suicides have a certain look, and this ain't it.
Jade heard a bang, and then she leaves the residence. Because Holly was in the bedroom at the time that Bill Grudowski was shot, we needed to find Holly.
People that commit a crime, they have a very great tendency to run away. So now the step is find her.
But before the homicide investigation gets off the ground, a man named Terry Reynolds reaches out with information.
I got some information about what happened at the house today.
It's extremely rare in murder cases to have an eyewitness announce their presence and say, I know what happened here.
You were there this morning?
Yeah. It's early, it's 5 a.m. Bill says he needs a ride somewhere.
So Terry tells us that he actually goes and picks up Bill, and they go to a location in the downtown area called River Springs.
Hey man, we're here for a minute. Go ahead.
Terry said that he didn't see the drugs, but he assumed that Bill was buying cocaine.
Thanks for the ride, man. Where you going? Hey, one favor. When we get back to your place, can I take a piss? I'm a racehorse. I drank way too much coffee this morning. Am I cool? Sure, man.
He was in the bathroom, but he hears a loud bang.
He finally comes out of the bathroom. He finds Holly in the living room.
Did what? Who did what?
Bill, he shot himself. You have a car, right?
Yeah.
I can't be here, so can you help me?
Yeah.
Please just...
Yeah, come on.
Okay.
Terry says they drive off. While they're driving, she's very upset.
She's crying, she's hysterical. He stops at a red light.
And I'm like, look, we gotta tell the police. And she like runs out the car.
Mr. Reynolds seems completely believable. I have no reason to believe he's involved in this.
Terry, I saw the body. Bill didn't commit suicide. He was murdered.
He was shocked.
Are you kidding?
No, I don't kid about things like that.
Can you think of any reason why Holly would decide to murder her husband?
It wasn't a happy marriage or anything, but Bill had a temper, and that was it.
I get a complete drift from Mr. Reynolds. He knows more than he's telling me.
Kenda decides the best way to crack that nut is to let Terry go, with a nudge to his conscience.
Well, Terry, I want to thank you for coming forward. I can tell you're someone that knows what's right is right. When you decide you want to tell me everything, just give me a call.
Dude, I told you everything I know.
Everything. Bye, Terry.
You think he'll call?
If he doesn't, maybe I'll throw his ass in jail.
While Kenda heads back to the office, Detective Walker reaches out to Bill's relatives to learn more about his marriage to Holly.
I always felt really bad for Holly.
Bill's family, and I love him, but he was not good to her.
Holly was probably afraid of Bill. He was somebody who was very controlling over her, but yet they lived this lifestyle that put them in harm's way.
A short time later, Kenda gets a visit from a familiar face.
Terry. I wasn't completely honest up front. I apologize. Just wanted to come and get my story straight, and I want to come clean about everything I know.
He apparently took what I said to him to heart.
Have a seat.
He tells police that Holly did not, in fact, jump out of the car and run into the night, never to be seen again.
I actually drove her to a safe place.
Terry tells police he wanted to take her somewhere they could figure out what to do.
And where is Holly?
So he took her to a friend's house.
And what's his friend's name?
His name's Matt Carr.
So we went to the address provided. And Mr. Carr resided in a trailer park. That's where he dropped her off.
Yes.
What was the Colorado Springs Police Department?
We asked him if he knew where Holly Gradowski was.
She's, in fact, asleep on the couch.
What happened when she got here?
She told me she was in a lot of trouble and that she was going to go to jail for a long time. She just went over to the couch, and that was that.
She just basically passed out.
Yeah, I really felt sorry for her.
Mind if we come in?
Yeah, sure.
Matt Carr accepted Holly as a guest because he knew William Gradowski did an awful lot of cocaine, that he was abusive to Holly verbally and physically.
It's time to speak with Holly face to face.
Come on, come on. Come on, get up, sit up.
Is Bill dead?
Yes. Yes, he is.
She says she was tired of running, and she wasn't running anymore.
Holly tells police that before Bill and Terry had left, she and Bill had had a very volatile fight.
I'm tired of looking at you, bitch. You better hope I don't kill you when I get back.
She said that when her husband left, he had a gun on him in his breast pocket.
Well, in Holly's mind, she's very afraid of this person. She thinks that, yeah, he's really capable of that, that when he gets back, if I'm not gone, I need to protect myself.
He told me to leave, but I don't have anywhere to go.
And sure enough, when he gets back and he sees Holly is there,
I told you I was sick of seeing you.
they get into a big fight.
She said that she was sitting on the bed in their bedroom with a shotgun next to her right leg. She said she knew that he was going to beat her. She didn't give him a chance.
Always the same thing, over and over. think I'm joking about killing you?
She felt it was necessary to kill him to defend herself.
It's not uncommon for an abused spouse to finally get to the point where they can't take it anymore.
Stand up. You're under arrest for murder. Come on.
Holly Grodowski was charged with first-degree murder with deliberation.
At trial, Holly pleads guilty to manslaughter and is sentenced to 15 years in prison. Then in 1999, 2 years into her sentence, Holly Grodowski is granted a reprieve.
Governor Roy Romer instituted a clemency program, and it involved murder, specifically if it involved an abusive spouse situation. So it's almost like justified homicide.
There are certain relationships that are poisonous by their nature. It rarely ends well.
It began with a knock on a rain-soaked apartment door at the edge of the Lower East Side, the kind of night where the city feels alive, yet hollow, the sirens slicing through the darkness like knives. In apartment 4B, a young woman named Lisa Turner disappeared without a trace. No struggle, no note, no witness who could remember a thing. Just the faint smell of her perfume lingering in the hallway, a ghostly trace that would haunt the building for decades. The neighbors whispered about the shadow that passed the street late at night, a figure that never seemed to belong, and the newspapers printed headlines that made the heart of the city tighten. Mysterious disappearance terrifies neighborhood. Every day, the same question lingered: where had she gone? The police combed the streets, interviewed friends and co-workers, followed tips that led nowhere. Her boyfriend, James Collins, claimed he last saw her leaving a local diner, smiling, waving at him without suspicion. Yet, when investigators visited the diner, no one remembered seeing Lisa that night. A receipt from a cash register dated the day of her disappearance became the only concrete proof she had existed, and even that offered little clarity. The city's cold winter winds seemed to mock the search, whipping through alleys and stairwells like invisible fingers reaching for answers that weren't there. Days stretched into weeks, weeks into months. Flyers plastered on lampposts faded under rain and snow. Each tip that came in was a dead end, a cruel joke played by fate. The detective assigned to the case, Marcus Hale, had seen his fair share of missing persons, but something about Lisa's disappearance gnawed him. There was no ransom note, no sign of forced entry, nothing that fit a clear pattern. The case was a labyrinth of shadows, and with each passing day, the walls seemed to close in. Marcus walked the streets at night, retracing Lisa's last known steps, feeling the pulse of the city that thrummed with secrets, each beat echoing with a question he couldn't answer. Lisa's apartment was a shrine of absence. Her belongings untouched, her bed neatly made, a mug still sitting on the counter. The refrigerator held her favorite yogurt, uneaten, the milk still fresh. It was as if she had simply vanished into the air. Friends reported hearing strange noises in the building in the days before she disappeared, footsteps when no one was home, a door creaking open that shouldn't, shadows moving across the walls. The super of the building dismissed these stories, claiming they were the imaginings of young women alone at night. But the stories persisted, whispered in coffee shops, repeated over diner counters, each retelling growing more sinister. The media descended. Local TV stations aired segments highlighting her disappearance, interviews with tearful parents, friends, classmates. Another young woman gone from New York streets, the anchors intoned, their voices tight with urgency. Police urged the public to call in tips, promising anonymity, promising that even the smallest detail could break the case wide open. Yet the calls trickled in, only to dry up, leaving the city with a gnawing emptiness, a feeling that something dark had swept through lower Manhattan and claimed one of its own. Months turned into a year. Lisa's case joined the growing list of cold cases in the precinct, files stacking up in dusty cabinets, photographs fading under fluorescent lights. Detectives rotated through, each hoping for a breakthrough, each leaving with the same frustration. Marcus Hale refused to let the case die. He pored over every note, every phone call, every witness statement, every scrap of evidence, no matter how small. He created a wall of maps and photographs in his office, strings connecting people, places, times, events, a visual echo of the chaos in his mind. The city moved on outside his office window, unaware that its streets still held secrets that could topple lives with the slightest push. And then came the first clue that wouldn't let go. A single photograph slipped through the evidence locker, misfiled among other missing person cases. The photo was blurry, grainy, taken from a distance, yet unmistakable. Lisa, or someone who looked like her, in the background of a street festival, smiling, unaware of the camera. But there was something wrong. In the corner of the frame, a figure lurked, part man, part shadow, watching her with an intensity that made the hairs on Marcus's neck rise. No one else noticed at the time, dismissed it as a passerby. But Marcus couldn't. Something about the stance, the way the figure blended with the shadows, triggered a memory buried deep in the city's archives. Another missing woman, another shadow, another face never caught. The detective traced the festival's records, the performers, the vendors, the street patrol logs. Every lead twisted and looped back on itself, taking him deeper into the city's underbelly. Abandoned warehouses, late-night diners with flickering neon, alleys where deals and threats were whispered, where truth and lies became indistinguishable. Residents spoke of a vanishing that seemed almost routine in certain neighborhoods, women disappearing without fanfare, their names forgotten by the city as quickly as they were uttered. The pattern was there, but obscured, like smoke curling around a lamppost, impossible to grasp, impossible to hold. By the second year, Lisa's parents had relocated, unable to bear the constant reminders, the glances from strangers, the pity in neighbors' eyes. Marcus stayed, became part of the building's routine, visiting the corner cafe where Lisa had last been seen, asking questions that went unanswered, piecing together fragments of memory, small gestures, a laugh, a touch of perfume in the air. He began keeping journals, recording every fleeting thought, every hypothesis, every encounter with a witness too scared, too ashamed, too oblivious to speak. The city outside his office seemed indifferent, indifferent to Lisa, to him, to the mystery that gnawed at its foundation. Then came the letter. No return address, no signature, only a single sentence scrawled in careful, looping handwriting, "You are looking in the wrong places." It arrived at the precinct in the dead of night, dropped through the slot of the evidence office, and left the detectives in a cold, tense silence. Marcus stared at it, reading it again and again, feeling the words crawl under his skin, rattle in his bones. Someone knew. Someone had been there. Someone had seen her. And they were mocking the entire investigation, daring him to follow, daring him to fail. The city, for a moment, held its breath, caught in the pause between action and consequence, knowing that the story of Lisa Turner was far from over. Investigators returned to her apartment, this time with a renewed sense of urgency, examining corners and crevices previously ignored. Behind the baseboards, in a hollowed space under the floorboards, they found a small, leather-bound notebook, its pages filled with entries in a meticulous hand. Dates, names, fleeting observations, sketches of faces, some familiar, some not. Lisa had written about someone following her, someone who watched from across the street, who lingered too long at intersections. The final entry was abrupt, jagged, "I know he's here. He will not stop. I must leave, or it will be the end." No signature, no explanation, just a silent scream captured on paper. Marcus felt the chill run down his spine as he flipped the notebook's pages. Each word drew him deeper into Lisa's world, into the terror she had tried to describe, into the shadow that had crept through her life unnoticed. He mapped the names, compared them to the vanishing reports, cross-checked them with surveillance footage where available, and found a web, a network of fear and obsession that threaded through the city's streets like an invisible scar. He realized the case was no longer about one missing woman. It was about uncovering the machinery behind years of disappearances, the undercurrent of menace that ran beneath the city's surface, unseen yet felt by anyone who dared walk the streets at night. The rain started again, heavy and relentless, turning the city into a reflection of itself, streets glistening under neon lights, shadows stretching into infinity. Marcus left the precinct, notebook in hand, tracing paths that Lisa had walked, imagining the eyes that had followed her, imagining the choices she had made, and the ones she hadn't. Somewhere, in the folds of time and memory, the answer waited. And the city, indifferent yet alive, held its breath for the revelation that would come, shaking foundations, rewriting lives, and leaving everyone who dared to look behind in awe and terror. The next morning, the city woke unaware, as if nothing had changed, but Marcus Hale felt the weight of unseen eyes pressing down on him. He returned to the Lower East Side, retracing the paths Lisa had walked, notebook in hand, tracing every cafe, every corner, every flickering streetlight. The alleyways seemed narrower now, shadows deeper, whispers curling around corners that held no one. Pedestrians passed, oblivious, headphones drowning out the faint echo of a scream that never reached their ears. The streets themselves seemed complicit, hiding secrets beneath cracked asphalt and fire escapes, silent witnesses to a crime that refused to fade. The notebook offered clues that had been overlooked. Scribbled observations about deliveries, men loitering too long, vehicles parked in strange patterns. Each entry was a breadcrumb leading somewhere unseen, a trail of anxiety and fear etched in ink. Marcus traced the notes to a series of warehouses along the East River, abandoned hulks of brick and steel where dockworkers claimed to hear footsteps, doors slamming in the dead of night, a sound that didn't belong to the wind. He visited the warehouses, flashlight slicing through dust and decay, his pulse quickening with every creak of floorboards. Here, the city's forgotten corners whispered truths that had been hidden for years. Witnesses were hard to come by. Old neighbors recalled fleeting glances, shadows that moved oddly, men whose presence felt off, yet they hesitated, fear rooting them to silence. One elderly shopkeeper remembered a black car parked outside the diner where Lisa had been last seen, night after night, idling like a predator waiting for its prey. No license plate, no driver ever visible. Marcus sketched the description, compared it with police records from decades ago, but nothing matched. It was as if the car had vanished into the ether, leaving only an imprint in the city's memory, a phantom that stalked the alleys and tenements. The media, sensing momentum, began revisiting the cold case. Headlines screamed across newspapers, shadow over Lower East Side, missing woman's story re-examined, and decades later, questions remain in Turner disappearance. Calls flooded the precinct. Some were tips, some were hoaxes, some confessions from people too frail or too unstable to be credible. Marcus listened to them all, filtering truth from the noise. Late nights were spent on hold, conversations threading through static and distortion, voices trembling, revealing fragments of memory, pieces of a puzzle that refused to form a complete picture. A breakthrough came from an unexpected source, a retired cab driver named Sal, who had plied the streets in the early 90s. Sal remembered picking up a young woman matching Lisa's description near the subway entrance on East 2nd Street. She had been hesitant, glancing over her shoulder, whispering a name, Holloway, before disappearing into the night. Marcus had checked Holloway, a known minor criminal in the area, but his file was thin, barely a trace of activity. Yet Sal's insistence, the tremor in his voice, convinced Marcus this was a thread worth pulling. He traced Holloway's movements, cross-referencing pay stubs, hotel registers, court records. Each detail deepened the labyrinth, showing connections between small-time offenses, missing women, and unexplained sightings, a web woven in silence over years. As days passed, Marcus discovered a pattern in the disappearances. Women vanished near clusters of buildings with certain architectural quirks, fire escapes that led nowhere, basements with false walls, doorways that opened onto dead-end corridors. It was as if the perpetrator had mapped the city's weaknesses, exploiting blind spots, every disappearance meticulously timed and executed. The city itself, in its grandeur and chaos, became an accomplice, concealing the crimes behind its lights and noise. Marcus began walking those streets at night, studying layouts, imagining footsteps echoing behind him, shadows slipping past his vision, a sense that the city was alive, watching, waiting. In one of the warehouses along the East River, Marcus found remnants of life. A discarded shoe, a torn piece of fabric, a set of cigarette butts lined in careful sequence, almost ritualistic. These were not random, they were markers, messages meant to be found, or to mislead, he could not yet tell. Dust hung thick in the air, and the metallic scent of rust and decay filled his nostrils. Each clue teased the mind, taunting him with near certainty yet offering no closure. He traced fingerprints, ran chemical tests, cross-referenced DNA from hair strands that had been long forgotten. Some samples were contaminated, others inconclusive. Still, the narrative of Lisa's last hours began to take shape, not complete, but hauntingly vivid. Meanwhile, the city itself seemed to mirror Marcus's obsession. Graffiti spoke in cryptic symbols, murals of eyes and streets weaving together, messages of fear or warnings, he could not tell. The locals avoided certain blocks after dark. Cats hissed at shadows. Dogs whimpered along alleys where wind whistled like voices whispering secrets. Each night, Marcus returned home drenched, not just from rain but from the oppressive weight of the case pressing on his mind. Sleep offered no relief. Dreams were fractured, Lisa appearing at windows, shadows flitting across rooftops, whispered warnings that vanished before he could understand. His own reflection in the darkened windows seemed distorted, a man haunted not just by a cold case, but by the city itself. The pressure intensified when an anonymous tip arrived, hand-delivered to the precinct. No envelope, just a single USB drive. Marcus inserted it into a secure terminal. Video footage from a security camera in an abandoned laundromat surfaced, grainy and shaky. A figure, unmistakably female, wearing Lisa's coat, moving hurriedly across the frame. Behind her, a tall man lurked, face obscured, but his movements deliberate. They vanished around a corner that had long been sealed off by the building's management. The footage ended abruptly. Marcus rewound, slowed, enhanced, every pixel screamed possibility. The city had hidden the truth in plain sight for decades, and only now was it emerging, flickering, incomplete, but undeniable. He began connecting dots between Holloway, the black car, the warehouses, and now this laundromat footage. Something larger was taking shape, a network, a predator who had exploited the city's labyrinthine geography, its indifferent crowds, its overlooked corners. The pattern was sinister, a choreography of abduction and concealment. Marcus mapped the movements meticulously, noting times, streets, transit routes. He realized that Lisa had been followed, not randomly taken. Someone had studied her, timed her, exploited predictable routines, all while blending into the city's chaos. The city pulsed with tension as Marcus shared the emerging pattern with select colleagues. Skepticism met him, but he persisted. Each dismissed lead from the past 2 decades suddenly appeared meaningful, like a secret language only now being deciphered. Neighbors remembered fleeting encounters differently when prompted with new questions. Security guards recalled men who loitered without reason. Janitors spoke of deliveries that never made sense. Each fragment, each minor memory, became a building block, reconstructing a night from 20 years ago with eerie clarity. As the investigation deepened, Marcus found a map drawn in pencil in Lisa's notebook, overlaid with street names, building numbers, even sketches of fire escapes. It was a city within a city, private and detailed, something only someone obsessively watched could produce. Someone had been watching Lisa, studying the pulse of her life, her routines, the way she walked to the corner store, the shops she visited, the streets she avoided. Marcus realized the perpetrator's planning had been meticulous, cold, patient, years in the making. The scale of the stalking, the thought behind every move, made the city itself feel like a cage, and every resident a potential witness too fearful to intervene. Night fell over Manhattan. Rain-slicked streets glimmered under the orange glow of street lamps. Marcus walked alone, notebook under arm, flashlight scanning for overlooked clues, for shadows that seemed to follow him, for signs that the past and present collided. He imagined Lisa moving through the city that night, the same alleys, the same fire escapes, the same streets alive with indifferent crowds. Somewhere out there, he knew, was the answer. Somewhere out there, the city had held its breath for decades, waiting for the truth to emerge, waiting for the moment when light would finally reach into the darkness and reveal the shocking twist that had remained hidden, invisible, yet always present. Days blurred into nights as Marcus Hale sank deeper into the city's veins, chasing shadows that seemed to shift when he looked directly at them. Every street corner, every cracked sidewalk, every flickering streetlight held a memory, a clue, a fragment of Lisa Turner's vanished life. He returned to the laundromat footage repeatedly, frame by frame, mapping every movement of the figures, tracing the path through the abandoned streets, comparing it with the notes in her leather-bound notebook. Each time he reviewed the footage, a subtle detail revealed itself, a glint of metal in the tall man's hand, the angle of a coat collar obscuring identity, the deliberate pace that spoke of calculation rather than chance. The city itself seemed to pulse with secrets as Marcus walked its streets, following the invisible lines of Lisa's final hours. Alleyways that had once seemed ordinary now appeared sinister, fire escapes looming like silent judges, windows staring back like eyes full of accusation. Residents crossed the street to avoid his gaze, unaware that their casual glances might have held the answers he sought. Every step Marcus took was haunted by the possibility of discovery, by someone watching him as closely as Lisa had once been observed, the predator's presence lingering decades later, almost palpable. A breakthrough came unexpectedly from an archival source. While reviewing old police logs and missing person reports, Marcus noticed a pattern he had previously overlooked: dates, locations, and times all subtly connected, forming a lattice of disappearances that extended far beyond Lisa Turner. Women of similar age, in neighborhoods not far from Lower East Side, vanished under circumstances that mirrored hers. Most cases had gone cold quickly, their files gathering dust in locked cabinets. The realization struck Marcus with the force of a tidal wave: Lisa's case was not isolated. The city had harbored a predator for years, someone meticulous, patient, and cruelly precise. The enormity of it made his pulse quicken, but it also sharpened his focus. In the shadows of the warehouses by the East River, Marcus began to reconstruct the predator's path. He found subtle signs: a cigarette butt crushed in a corner, shoe prints half buried in dust, fingerprints long ignored. Each clue, small and seemingly insignificant, told a story of stalking, manipulation, and control. Marcus's team began canvassing witnesses again, revisiting old tips with renewed questions, pushing beyond the boundaries of memory into the realm of intuition. Slowly, faces and names that had seemed unimportant began to link, forming a map of relationships, movements, obsessions that stretched across the city like a hidden grid. An old friend of Lisa's, Mara, provided a fragment of insight that changed everything. She recalled an encounter at a subway station months before Lisa vanished, a man asking questions about her routines, her favorite cafes, her friends, his demeanor calm but unsettling. The description aligned uncannily with the tall figure in the laundromat footage, the one who had shadowed Lisa in the final frames. Marcus realized the predator had not just followed, he had studied, he had cataloged, he had integrated Lisa's life into a personal dossier of obsession. The city itself, its chaos and noise, had served as cover for someone who knew how to hide in plain sight. As the investigation advanced, Marcus revisited Lisa's apartment one more time, meticulously examining every corner, every shelf, every crack in the walls. He discovered a faint scent lingering in a closet, almost imperceptible: cologne, metallic, chemical, something that did not belong in the apartment, something that suggested a presence long after she had vanished. He bagged samples, sent them for analysis, and waited, knowing that forensic science might offer the first concrete connection after decades of shadows and supposition. Sleep became elusive, dreams turned into reenactments of Lisa's last days, her face a constant presence, her fear a mirror of his own obsession. The city itself seemed to respond to his persistence. Reports of strange occurrences increased: black cars seen idling, figures glimpsed in alleyways, whispers in empty corridors. It was as if the predator, sensing the net tightening, had emerged from dormancy to taunt those who dared to pursue him. Marcus felt the tension coil inside him, a combination of fear and adrenaline, a sense that he was close, yet danger lurked just out of sight, waiting to pounce on the slightest misstep. Every investigation brought new revelations, each more chilling than the last. The forensic lab provided results that sent a shock through Marcus. Fibers found in the laundromat footage and in Lisa's apartment matched threads from a jacket associated with Holloway. DNA from the same sources, previously inconclusive, now produced a partial profile, enough to suggest presence but not identity. Marcus realized that the city itself had preserved these traces, hiding them in plain sight, waiting for the moment when patience and persistence would reveal their significance. The pieces were aligning, but the final image remained obscured by decades of secrecy and neglect. Neighbors who had once been hesitant now came forward with fragments of memory. A janitor recalled seeing a man carrying a large bag late one night, vanishing down an alley where Lisa was later traced. Another resident described hearing a woman's cry echo from a warehouse, muffled but distinct, hours before any disappearance was reported. Marcus mapped these accounts, overlaying them with his existing timeline, and patterns began to emerge. The predator had operated in a specific rhythm, exploiting the city's blind spots, its indifferent eyes, and the natural chaos that masked meticulous planning. The press began covering the renewed investigation, drawing attention to the city's cold cases and the new leads. Headlines screamed urgency, decades-old mystery deepens, Turner case re-examined, and shadows in the city, who watched Lisa Turner. Marcus, though wary of public scrutiny, recognized the power of attention. It brought witnesses, tips, and pressure on the system that could not be ignored. Calls came in, some credible, some not, but each offered a piece of the puzzle. Marcus sifted through them like a prospector panning for gold, aware that one correct detail could crack open a decades-old secret. As the investigation intensified, the city's nightscape became both ally and adversary. Shadows danced across walls, streetlights flickered unpredictably, and the wind carried whispers that seemed almost intentional. Marcus walked these streets alone, retracing Lisa's final movements, imagining the predator's perspective, understanding the depth of obsession that had orchestrated her disappearance. Each step revealed the calculated precision of someone who had mastered the art of hiding in plain sight, leaving only faint traces that could be decoded by a relentless investigator. Then came the breakthrough that no one expected. A witness came forward, claiming to recognize the man in the laundromat footage. He had seen the figure at a community center years earlier, volunteering, unremarkable to most, but the witness remembered because of a small, peculiar habit. The man always carried a notebook, always scribbled observations, and never interacted directly with anyone. Marcus realized the significance immediately. This was someone who observed methodically, someone who had meticulously tracked Lisa's life, blending obsession with normalcy. The puzzle pieces, once disparate, began to form a coherent pattern, pointing directly to the shocking truth that had eluded the city for 20 years. Marcus Hale felt the weight of revelation pressing against his chest as he followed the lead from the witness, the image of the man with the notebook etched into his mind. Every street, every corner, every doorway in Lower Manhattan now seemed like part of a larger puzzle, a labyrinth designed to conceal secrets, yet inadvertently leaving breadcrumbs for those who dared to notice. The city's pulse quickened around him, honking taxis, clanging subway trains, footsteps echoing on wet pavement, all forming a symphony of life that masked a darkness no one had yet fully acknowledged. He walked the streets alone, flashlight in hand, notebook in pocket, replaying the footage again and again, overlaying each frame with the witness's description, the fibers, the notes Lisa had left behind. The warehouse along the East River became the epicenter of his investigation. He returned there with a small team, careful, methodical, scanning the crumbling floors, peeling back layers of grime and dust, searching for what the predator had left behind. Each step sent echoes into the empty expanse, each shadow seemed to flicker with movement, though nothing appeared to exist but the walls and the debris. Marcus's mind replayed Lisa's words from her notebook, the frantic final entry, "I must leave, or it will be the end." He felt the terror she had known, understood the cold calculation that had stalked her, and the patience that had allowed the predator to hide in plain sight for decades. They found evidence overlooked before, traces of recent activity, fresh cigarette ash on a ledge, scuff marks along the wooden floorboards, fingerprints that had previously gone untested. The air was thick with the metallic scent of rust and decay, an odor that seemed to hold the echo of fear itself. Every clue seemed small, almost insignificant, but collectively, they told a story. Someone had used this warehouse repeatedly, studying movements, testing routines, marking patterns. The predator was meticulous, deliberate, patient, traits that had allowed Lisa Turner to disappear and so many others to vanish unnoticed. At the precinct, Marcus cross-referenced this evidence with the forensic results from Lisa's apartment and the laundromat footage. The fibers, the partial DNA, the behavioral pattern, all pointed to a singular individual, someone who had managed to blend seamlessly into the city's fabric, leaving only faint traces that were easily dismissed. Holloway's name surfaced repeatedly, but there were still gaps, inconsistencies that suggested he was a link, not the mastermind. Marcus mapped every disappearance, every sighting, every clue on a wall of string and pins, visualizing the predator's network as a lattice of obsession woven across Manhattan. Interviews intensified. Old neighbors, retired police officers, and former friends of Holloway were questioned. Each conversation revealed fragments of information, pieces of a mosaic that had been scattered across time and memory. A former coworker recalled seeing Holloway meet with a man wearing a black coat, someone who took notes, observed interactions, and left without drawing attention. The image fit with the witness's earlier description, and with the haunting figure from the laundromat footage. Marcus realized the predator had not just observed Lisa Turner, he had orchestrated a network, a silent army of surveillance, and his reach extended far beyond the Lower East Side. As Marcus dug deeper, the city's pulse felt almost sentient. Streetlights flickered ominously, wind whistled down alleys as if carrying messages, and shadows lengthened in ways that made familiar streets appear unfamiliar. Marcus walked at night, retracing Lisa's steps, imagining the predator watching from the periphery, always just out of reach, his presence a constant weight. The sense of being observed gnawed at Marcus, the realization that this individual had been operating undetected for decades, creating a tension that coiled tightly in his chest. Then, an unexpected lead arrived in the form of a forgotten police file, buried under decades of paperwork. A name jumped out, Samuel Graves, a man with a history of petty crimes and a reputation for obsession with women who reminded him of someone from his past. Graves had vanished from public record for years, but his known addresses intersected precisely with the pattern Marcus had traced from the laundromat footage and warehouse activity. Marcus felt a jolt of recognition. Here was a thread long ignored, overlooked because it seemed mundane, yet it connected every shadow, every disappearance, every chilling observation. The breakthrough was sudden and shocking. While cross-referencing Graves' known movements with city surveillance archives, Marcus discovered a series of rental storage units, abandoned buildings, and residences, all containing traces of activity linked to the missing women. Among these locations was a small, nondescript brownstone in a quieter neighborhood, overlooked by the city, yet perfectly positioned near Lisa's usual routes. Inside, investigators found journals, sketches, and photographs, some of Lisa, some of others, documenting routines, movements, and interactions in painstaking detail. The predator had been cataloging lives, each observation methodically recorded, each interaction analyzed, all pointing to the singular obsession that had eluded justice for 20 years. The city's reaction began to ripple outward. The media caught wind of the investigation, sensational headlines proclaiming, "Twisted obsession uncovered, Turner cold case breaks wide open and man cataloged victims for decades, New York's darkest secret revealed." Residents spoke in hushed tones about the streets they had walked countless times, unaware of the predator's presence in their midst. Fear mingled with awe, the realization that the city's chaos and indifference had masked the truth for decades, leaving everyone unsettled. Marcus's obsession grew. He retraced Lisa's path meticulously, noting intersections, cross streets, abandoned stairwells, every minor deviation that might have been part of the predator's surveillance network. Each observation added clarity to the picture, revealing a mind that had exploited the city's anonymity, its crowds, and its routine, turning everyday life into a carefully orchestrated performance of observation and concealment. Marcus felt the city pulse beneath him, alive with history, memory, and menace, the shadows of the past converging toward revelation. And then the final clue emerged, small, almost trivial, yet monumental. A photograph tucked inside one of Graves' journals showed Lisa, smiling, unaware, in a park she often visited. But in the corner, almost imperceptible, was a reflection in a store window, a man, coat collar raised, notebook in hand, watching her with a focus that sent a shiver through Marcus. It was the missing piece, the link that confirmed everything. Graves had followed her, documented her, orchestrated her disappearance. The predator's patience, meticulousness, and cold calculation became terrifyingly clear, and the city's indifference over decades suddenly felt complicit. Marcus Hale stood on the rain-slick streets at night, notebook in hand, reflecting on the enormity of what had been uncovered. The city, indifferent yet alive, held secrets within its shadows that only the persistent could extract. And in that moment, the culmination of 20 years of obsession, fear, and relentless pursuit of truth pressed against him, the realization that justice, long delayed, was finally within reach, and the shocking twist that would shake the city to its core was about to emerge from the darkness, exposing a network of terror meticulously hidden in plain sight. Marcus Hale's hands trembled as he stood outside the brownstone on a fog-laden night. The city around him buzzed with the usual chaos, honking taxis, distant sirens, the low hum of fluorescent lights, but inside, the silence was suffocating. Years of investigation, decades of unanswered questions, all led to this unassuming building tucked between larger, indifferent facades. He could almost feel Graves inside, lurking in the shadows, a predator finally cornered after decades of meticulous observation. Every instinct in Marcus screamed caution, yet determination surged like electricity through his veins. The lock on the front door was old, worn, easy to bypass for someone patient and methodical. Marcus and a small team of officers entered quietly, the flashlight beams slicing through the darkness, illuminating dust motes and cobwebs that had collected over years of neglect. Each step echoed against bare walls, bouncing shadows across floors that had witnessed secrets for decades. Marcus's pulse raced as he imagined Lisa's presence, her footsteps, her fear, replaying the moments before the predator's hand had claimed control over her life. The building felt alive, pulsing with the residue of obsession and malice, each room a silent witness to decades of concealed horror. The first floor revealed journals, photographs, notebooks meticulously arranged. Every missing woman's movements had been documented, analyzed, and catalogued with a precision that made Marcus's stomach churn. There were sketches of routes, timetables, subway lines, fire escapes, and alleyways. Notes scribbled in the margins suggested surveillance routines, observations of daily habits, minute details that only an obsessed mind could track. Marcus realized that Lisa Turner had been only one thread in a vast web of predation, a victim in a citywide pattern of terror executed under the cloak of normalcy. Then, a sound. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate, echoing from the second floor. Marcus signaled the team to hold, tension coiling in his chest. The predator, Samuel Graves, was here. Somewhere above, a man who had eluded justice for decades, whose careful planning had allowed countless disappearances, waited. The air grew heavier, thick with anticipation, the shadows seemingly curling closer as Marcus ascended the narrow staircase. Each step brought him closer to the culmination of 20 years of obsession, fear, and relentless pursuit of truth. The upper floor was a shrine to meticulous malice. Maps pinned to walls, photographs of faces, objects catalogued in plastic bins. Marcus could almost hear the whispers of the missing, feel their presence in the dust-laden air. Then he saw him, Graves, hunched over a desk, notebook open, pen moving frenetically. The man looked up, eyes wide, almost shocked to see the law finally at his door. The predator's mask of normalcy cracked, revealing the cold calculation beneath. Marcus's voice was steady, commanding. Samuel Graves. You're under arrest. This ends tonight. Graves laughed softly, a dry, humorless sound, as if amused by the inevitability finally catching up to him. You don't understand, he said, voice calm, deliberate. It's never about them. It's about control, observation. Understanding patterns. I've been patient. I've watched the city. It hides its secrets in plain sight. You should have left it alone. Marcus's eyes swept the room, absorbing the evidence, the painstakingly documented obsession. It was staggering, almost incomprehensible. Every missing woman, every vanished life, a testament to Graves' meticulous mind and the city's unknowing complicity. The arrest was tense. Graves did not resist physically, but the psychological weight of decades of secrecy hung in the air, pressing against everyone in the room. Evidence was seized, photographs catalogued, notebooks taken as proof of decades-long surveillance and predation. Marcus watched as the predator was led away, still smirking, still calculating, as if the capture was just another step in a plan too vast for anyone to fully understand. The city outside continued, oblivious to the closure finally being enacted inside a small, forgotten brownstone. The aftermath reverberated through the precinct and the city. Press outlets exploded with headlines: Samuel Graves arrested, Turner cold case solved, and Predator's two-decade reign of terror ends. Neighbors, once unaware or hesitant to speak, shared what they remembered. Witnesses recounted fleeting observations, odd behaviors, and lingering fears. Marcus realized that the city itself had been a silent accomplice, its chaos masking a predator's meticulous planning, and yet the city now bore witness to justice being served, however delayed. But the psychological impact lingered. Lisa's family, though relieved that answers had been found, could not escape the shadows of uncertainty, the haunting question of what she endured during her final days. Marcus returned to her apartment, now vacant yet still alive with memory, reflecting on the tenacity, patience, and darkness that had allowed Graves to operate for so long. He felt a mixture of triumph and lingering unease. Justice had been served, but the weight of decades of unseen terror left scars, invisible but permanent, on the city and on those who had pursued the truth. As the city settled into night, Marcus walked the streets, tracing Lisa's paths, observing familiar corners that now felt different. Shadows still moved in the periphery, but now the city's pulse seemed less menacing, the dark corners illuminated by the knowledge that patience, persistence, and relentless pursuit of truth could pierce even decades-long concealment. He thought of Graves, methodical, patient, obsessive, finally captured, and of the city that had held its breath for 20 years. The cold case that had haunted investigators, families, and neighbors for decades was now resolved, leaving behind a mixture of closure, shock, and lingering dread. The streets glistened from rain, reflections of neon signs stretching across puddles like fractured memories. Marcus knew the story would haunt the city, told in whispers and headlines, a reminder that darkness often hides in plain sight, and that vigilance, courage, and relentless pursuit of truth were the only shields against it. And yet, even with Graves captured and evidence catalogued, the city held its secrets, reminding him and everyone who walked its streets that shadows never fully vanish, they only shift, waiting for the next observer to notice. The city woke the next morning under a thin drizzle, streets gleaming with rain, and Marcus Hale walked them with a sense of quiet vigilance. The arrest of Samuel Graves had made headlines, but the echoes of the past still reverberated through every corner, every alley, every dimly lit stairwell where shadows once held secrets. Lisa Turner's name was spoken again, whispered in cafes, shouted in press conferences, repeated in conversations that trembled between relief and horror. The city had been forced to confront what had been hidden in plain sight for decades, and the revelation left a chill that no neon sign or traffic light could warm. Families of other missing women, some long forgotten, came forward, their grief mingled with a strange sense of vindication. Marcus listened to them, recording every detail, every lingering memory. Faces twisted with questions of why now and why not sooner, the shadows of uncertainty still heavy in their eyes. Each account, each story, was another reminder that the city's indifference had allowed a predator to operate freely, turning everyday life into a carefully orchestrated stage for obsession. Marcus's mind traced the invisible lines that connected each disappearance, understanding now the scope of Graves' reach and the weight of lives altered, stolen, or suspended in fear. In the precinct, officers sifted through evidence collected from the brownstone, the warehouses, the laundromat, and every scrap of forensic material that linked Graves to the victims. Each notebook, each photograph, each fiber was analyzed, catalogued, and archived. It was overwhelming, the meticulousness of Graves' records, the cold calculation that had allowed him to evade detection for decades. Marcus felt a strange mix of satisfaction and unease. The puzzle had been solved, yet the enormity of the deception left him haunted. He realized the city itself had been both stage and accomplice, its chaos and routine masking years of observation and predation. The press coverage exploded, sensationalizing the case with words like "Reign of Terror ends," "Predator finally captured," and "City's shadows exposed." Marcus watched the city absorb the story with a mixture of fascination and horror. Conversations in cafes and buses were dominated by speculation, by fear, by relief. The streets Marcus walked daily felt different now. Familiar alleys, once merely paths to destinations, seemed imbued with memory. The shadows had not vanished, they had shifted, lingering in the corners of consciousness, reminders that the city's calm surfaces often conceal turbulence beneath. Lisa's apartment became a shrine of memory and closure, visited by family and friends who wished to honor her life and the bravery of those who had sought her truth. The spaces she had once inhabited seemed alive with her presence, furniture arranged as she had left it, her favorite belongings untouched. Marcus walked through the apartment, imagining her routines, the laughter and conversations that had once filled the rooms, and the terror she must have felt in her final days. The juxtaposition of normalcy and horror created a tension that he carried with him, a lingering echo of the cold case that had shaped his life as much as hers. At community centers and local meetings, residents spoke openly for the first time about fears that had long been suppressed. Women described the subtle, almost invisible threats that had made them cautious, the strange men lingering near streets and stores, the unease that had never been named. Marcus listened, noting each detail, understanding that the predator's reach had been amplified by the city's blindness, by its indifference, and by the shadows that had allowed secrets to fester for decades. The arrest of Graves brought relief, but also recognition of vulnerability, of how easily life could be observed, catalogued, and controlled by someone patient and cunning. The psychological weight of the case pressed heavily on Marcus. He spent nights replaying the investigation, walking the streets of Lower Manhattan, flashlight in hand, retracing paths, reviewing notebooks, visualizing movements. The predator's precision, patience, and obsession became almost tangible, a presence that lingered in the corners of his mind. Dreams were haunted by images of shadowed alleys, flickering streetlights, and fleeting glimpses of faces long gone. He knew the city had not changed, its indifference and chaos remained, but the lens through which he now saw it had been forever altered. Forensics continued to yield revelations, linking Graves to other cold cases that had remained dormant for decades. Partial DNA matches, overlooked photographs, misfiled police reports, all converged to form a pattern of surveillance and abduction that confirmed the extent of his calculated predation. Each new connection deepened the horror, the city's pulse echoing the collective anxiety of victims, families, and investigators alike. Marcus realized that even with Graves behind bars, the city would carry the scars of what had transpired in its shadows, a legacy of fear and meticulous control that could not be fully erased. Neighborhoods once indifferent became reflective. Small businesses that had been silent witnesses began to speak out, offering recollections, photographs, and personal accounts. Marcus compiled the narratives, building a comprehensive chronology that would serve not only to convict Graves but also to memorialize the lives affected, stolen, and disrupted by his decades-long obsession. The city itself seemed to participate in this collective acknowledgement, the streets, buildings, and alleys now repositories of truth as well as memory, each corner echoing with the stories that had remained unheard for too long. Despite the resolution, Marcus felt the haunting presence of uncertainty. Graves' calm demeanor, his obsessive documentation, and the sheer patience with which he had executed his crimes left Marcus questioning how many other shadows still lurked in the city, hidden in plain sight. The arrest brought answers, but also raised questions about the nature of observation, control, and anonymity in a sprawling metropolis. The city's ordinary rhythm, subway trains, taxis, pedestrians, continued, but Marcus moved through it with new awareness, every shadow a potential witness, every flicker of movement a possible echo of past horrors. As night descended, rain-slicked streets mirrored neon lights, creating a fractured reflection of memory and revelation. Marcus walked alone, notebook in hand, retracing paths Lisa had once walked, reflecting on Graves' meticulous planning, and on the resilience of those who refused to let the cold case fade into obscurity. The city's pulse was alive with secrets, yet for the first time in decades, one story had reached resolution. Lisa Turner's name was spoken aloud again, her story reclaimed, her absence acknowledged, her memory honored. And yet, even with closure achieved, the shadows lingered, whispering of what had been, what could have been, and the quiet vigilance required to ensure the city's secrets remained illuminated. Weeks after Graves' arrest, Marcus Hale returned to the city streets with a lingering sense of unease. The headlines had faded, the public fascination had moved on, but the shadows remained. Neighborhoods whispered secrets, fire escapes, alleys, and abandoned buildings seemed imbued with memory, as if the city itself refused to release the tension that had built over decades. Every reflection in a rain-slicked window, every flicker of movement in peripheral vision, carried the weight of history. Marcus could almost feel Graves' presence lingering, a reminder that obsession does not end with a cell door. Unopened files in the precinct revealed overlooked connections. Minor discrepancies in witness statements, reports dismissed as irrelevant, and half-forgotten tips formed patterns that had been invisible until now. Marcus pored over these documents, his flashlight slicing through dusty evidence folders. Names, addresses, and dates formed subtle threads linking Graves to locations he had never imagined. It was clear the predator had planned meticulously, but even his precision had limits. Human error, forgotten items, and the relentless persistence of investigators like Marcus created cracks in the armor, glimpses of truth hidden among decades of chaos. One file detailed a woman who had vanished in 1989, years before Lisa Turner, in a part of Brooklyn Graves was never officially linked to. A photograph in the folder showed her smiling, unaware, standing in front of a cafe where Graves had been known to loiter. Marcus traced her last steps, reconstructing her route using old transit maps and building records. The city unfolded like a massive puzzle, revealing hidden paths, overlooked corners, and silent witnesses who had been too fearful, too dismissive, or simply unaware of the predator's watchful eye. It was a chilling reminder that Graves' reach had been wider than anyone had realized, his shadow stretching across neighborhoods in ways only persistence could expose. Marcus visited the cafe, now a modernized storefront, and spoke with the current owner. He described the events, asking if anyone remembered unusual visitors decades ago. A retired barista, now working part-time, mentioned a man who had frequented the place, sketching constantly, asking peculiar questions about women's routines, always leaving before anyone could engage. It matched the pattern Marcus had seen repeatedly. Surveillance disguised as normalcy, obsession camouflaged in everyday life. The predator's methodology was brilliant in its simplicity, terrifying in its meticulous patience. At the warehouses along the East River, Marcus discovered further traces of Graves' activity that had been overlooked. A hidden compartment contained photographs of building interiors, floor plans, and handwritten notes marking points of entry and exit. Each page revealed a level of strategic calculation that left Marcus both awed and horrified. The predator had mapped the city like a chessboard, anticipating movements, exploiting patterns, and masking presence. The realization struck Marcus: Graves' obsession was not merely personal, it was methodical, almost architectural, exploiting the city itself as a tool of control and concealment. An anonymous letter arrived at the precinct, delivered without a return address. Inside was a map with coordinates marked along the East River and Lower Manhattan, accompanied by a note, "You've only seen what I allowed you to see." Marcus felt a chill. It was clear the predator, even in custody, was aware of the investigation's trajectory, calculating, aware, taunting. The message implied that despite the arrest, Graves' network had left traces, perhaps unexposed accomplices, overlooked caches, or secrets buried in corners that only patience and persistence could uncover. The city itself seemed complicit, holding on to these secrets in its unyielding architecture, waiting for eyes keen enough to detect them. He revisited Lisa's routes one evening, flashlight in hand, the streets slick with rain, neon signs fractured across puddles like shards of memory. Every alleyway, every doorway, every fire escape seemed to resonate with possibility. Marcus imagined Graves following, documenting, observing. The predator's meticulous notes had mapped every routine, every deviation, creating a lattice of control. And yet, within this lattice, small anomalies appeared, a misplaced item, a forgotten witness, a fleeting shadow. Marcus realized that even a masterful predator could not control everything, and these oversights were the keys to uncovering hidden truths still lying dormant in the city's labyrinth. In the old laundromat, Marcus found more photographs tucked behind the dryer, images he had overlooked previously. Women in everyday poses, smiling, walking, unaware of the camera capturing their movements. One image was partially obscured, a reflection of a man in the window, but a faint glint of metal in his hand suggested something sinister. The photograph confirmed a chilling thought: Graves' obsession extended beyond documentation. He had planned actions, staged events, rehearsed control, and observed responses. Each photograph, each page, each mark in his journals was a window into the predator's mind, a map of obsession and control meticulously plotted over decades. Neighborhoods whispered again, as if the city itself was recounting memories long suppressed. Residents remembered fleeting encounters differently when prompted, recollections that had seemed insignificant now carried weight. A man recalled a black car idling near a corner store late at night, a woman disappearing into the shadows. A former delivery driver described crates that never made sense, doors that led nowhere. Marcus traced these fragments, overlaying them on maps, timelines, and photographs, constructing a hidden network of observation that Graves had exploited. The puzzle pieces clicked into place with terrifying clarity, revealing the depth and precision of decades-long predation. Even with Graves incarcerated, Marcus felt the city's pulse shift subtly, as if it held its breath. Shadows lingered in corners, alleyways seemed longer, fire escapes more ominous, windows reflecting life with a hint of watchfulness. The predator's obsession had left an imprint not just on victims, but on the urban landscape itself. The city had been transformed, layered with memory, evidence, and echoes of fear. Marcus walked these streets with awareness, knowing that while one story had been resolved, countless traces remained, silent witnesses to lives disrupted, terror imposed, and secrets that could only be illuminated by vigilance, observation, and relentless pursuit of truth. And so the city exhaled slowly, the rain washing streets but not memories, neon lights flickering over puddles like fractured reflections of a past that refused to be forgotten. Marcus knew that even now, after Graves' arrest, the cold case's shadow lingered, whispering of what had been and what might still be hidden. The city had revealed its secrets, but only to those patient enough to follow them, to read the signs, to connect the dots. The truth had emerged, shocking and chilling, yet the city's heartbeat carried on, indifferent yet transformed, a living testament to the persistence of memory, fear, and the search for justice. Months passed, yet the city carried the weight of Samuel Graves' obsession like a pulse beneath its streets, a hidden rhythm that refused to fade. Marcus Hale walked familiar avenues, tracing Lisa Turner's footsteps, revisiting alleys and fire escapes, haunted by the knowledge that one person's patience and calculation had altered countless lives. The rain-slick streets reflected neon signs like shattered memories, and every shadow seemed to whisper warnings, reminders that darkness thrives in plain sight, that vigilance must never waver. Community meetings were filled with voices still trembling from shock. Families of victims spoke of lost time, stolen moments, and decades of unanswered questions. Their grief, relief, and lingering fear formed a tension that hung over Marcus, a constant reminder that closure is never simple. Even with graves behind bars, the city seemed to breathe uneasily, as if acknowledging the long shadow he had cast. Every light, every reflection, every echo of the past became a subtle reminder of the fragility of safety, the thin veneer of normalcy that hides true danger. Investigators continued combing through Graves' journals, photographs, and meticulous notes. Each page revealed calculations, observations, and manipulations, a testament to an obsession that had endured decades. Patterns were analyzed, cross-referenced, mapped against the city itself, and the scope of his surveillance astonished even seasoned detectives. Marcus realized that the predator had weaponized the urban landscape, exploiting crowds, routines, and anonymity to maintain control. It was a chilling lesson: the city is never neutral, its chaos and indifference can conceal horrors for years. Psychological analyses of Graves revealed a mind both brilliant and methodical, terrifying in its focus. Specialists described obsessive behaviors, the compulsive need to document, to monitor, to control, traits that had enabled his reign of fear. Marcus listened closely, understanding that insight into the mind of a predator is both unsettling and essential. The city itself had been a canvas, and Graves had painted a pattern of terror upon it, leaving marks that only a relentless investigator could trace decades later. Neighborhoods adjusted slowly, cautiously. Residents who had been complacent now walked with awareness, teaching children to notice subtle signs, to trust instincts, to question anomalies. Street corners, alleys, and abandoned lots were no longer just features of the urban landscape, they were potential witnesses, reminders that darkness can exist quietly, patiently, waiting for an opening. Marcus understood that while one predator had been caught, the city remained vulnerable, its anonymity and scale providing cover for those with patient intent. In Lisa Turner's apartment, the final items were catalogued, mementos returned to family, photographs preserved for closure. Marcus walked through the space, reflecting on her life, her routines, her laughter, her last notes. The apartment, once ordinary, had been transformed into a repository of memory, grief, and resilience. He understood that closure was never complete, that the city itself would continue to echo with the story of a woman whose life had been interrupted, whose disappearance had revealed the vulnerabilities of an urban landscape and the patience of a predator. The press covered the lingering effects of the case, reporting on community vigilance, law enforcement reforms, and psychological impact. Headlines shouted, "City learns lessons from Turner cold case," and "Graves' obsession spurs awareness across neighborhoods." Marcus observed these developments with mixed emotions, satisfaction that lessons were learned, but unease that the same patterns could manifest elsewhere if vigilance waned. The story had become a warning. The city's shadows are not inert, they are active participants in human observation, capable of hiding dangers in plain sight. One evening, Marcus walked the East River path where Lisa's route had once ended. Fog clung to the water, obscuring streetlights and distant traffic. He paused, listening to the echoes of the city, the distant honk of a taxi, the rumble of the subway, the murmur of voices from nearby apartments. Shadows shifted along the river's edge, reflections fracturing like memories. He imagined Graves observing, calculating, a presence in absentia that remained potent despite incarceration. It was a reminder that obsession and darkness leave traces far longer than life itself, embedded in spaces, memories, and the city's rhythm. A small, previously overlooked photograph surfaced from Graves' archive, showing a park bench where Lisa had often sat. In the reflection of a nearby window, a figure stood, notebook in hand, observing, an echo of the predator's method, a final, chilling glimpse of the way he had catalogued lives. Marcus studied the image, noting subtle details, the angle of the reflection, the posture of the figure, the glint of metal. It was a haunting reminder, even when one case is solved, the methods, the obsession, the shadows they create, can ripple through time and space, leaving communities altered and aware, yet perpetually vigilant. As the city entered night, Marcus walked past the brownstone where Graves had been captured. Windows were dark, streets empty. Rain slicked the pavement, reflecting lights in fractured shards. Every step he took felt weighted with memory, observation, and awareness. The case had ended, yet the city's pulse carried the residue of decades-long surveillance and obsession. Shadows whispered across walls, and the wind through alleyways seemed to carry faint echoes of lives observed, lives altered, lives reclaimed through persistence and vigilance. Marcus paused at a corner, looking up at the skyline. Neon lights flickered over puddles, casting fragmented reflections across the street. The city's rhythm continued, indifferent yet transformed. Lessons lingered, awareness heightened, and the story of Lisa Turner became more than a cold case solved. It became a cautionary tale, a reminder of what can thrive in the shadows, the importance of vigilance, and the enduring need to observe, to question, and to seek truth in a city that often hides it in plain sight. The echoes of the case would persist, not just in headlines or police files, but in the very pulse of the city, where shadows never fully disappear, they only shift, waiting for eyes keen enough to see them. Months turned into seasons, yet Marcus Hale could not shake the imprint of the Turner case from his mind. The city moved on, indifferent to the echoes of obsession and terror that had coursed through its streets for decades, yet for Marcus, every street corner, every alley, every fire escape remained a testament to lives altered, stolen, and reclaimed. He walked past neon signs, rain-slick sidewalks, and flickering streetlights, each reflection in a puddle of fractured memory of the shadow that had once stalked Lisa Turner and countless others. The city was alive with its usual chaos, yet beneath it pulsed a hidden narrative, a lattice of surveillance, observation, and patient predation that had shaped the urban landscape without most realizing. He revisited old photographs, police files, and Graves' meticulously detailed journals. Each page was a window into the predator's mind, a chilling documentation of obsession that revealed the depths of planning, patience, and control. Marcus traced the lines of connection between missing women, patterns of surveillance, and the exploitation of anonymity within the city. It was staggering, the level of methodical observation, the quiet calculation that had allowed a predator to remain invisible for decades, operating in plain sight under the veil of normalcy. The city itself had become an accomplice, a canvas for his manipulations, and now a witness to justice long delayed. Neighborhoods remembered. Residents who had been indifferent now spoke in hushed tones, recalling fleeting glimpses of men loitering, black cars idling at corners, shadows in alleyways. The community became acutely aware of its own vulnerability, realizing that danger can exist silently, patiently, embedded in ordinary routines. Marcus listened to these accounts, compiling them into a chronology, understanding that the city itself carries memory, that spaces, streets, and structures hold traces of events long after the actors have disappeared. The legacy of Graves' obsession was tangible, etched into the city's rhythm, its architecture, and its people's awareness. Even in incarceration, Graves remained a psychological presence. Reports from prison indicated he was calm, detached, often writing, analyzing, observing fellow inmates. His obsession had not vanished, it had shifted, constrained but persistent. Marcus considered this carefully, understanding that true obsession does not disappear with bars or chains. It adapts, persists, and lingers, a shadow that stretches beyond physical confines. The city itself had been a laboratory for his methods, a place where he had honed control, observation, and patience, and these traits continued to resonate even as he sat behind concrete walls. Lisa Turner's family struggled with closure. Relief was tempered with lingering fear and grief, the weight of decades of uncertainty pressing on them even as answers were delivered. Marcus visited them, sharing findings, walking them through discoveries, and helping them piece together a narrative that had been obscured by time, neglect, and the predator's meticulous concealment. They clung to fragments of memory, photographs, and narratives, trying to rebuild an understanding of what had been lost, what had been stolen, and what justice now meant. The psychological imprint of the cold case was undeniable, echoing long after the perpetrator had been apprehended. In the neighborhoods where Lisa and other victims had lived, streets seemed different. Familiar paths now carried an awareness that had not existed before, fire escapes were watched with cautious eyes, alleyways examined, windows glimpsed for signs of observation. Marcus walked these streets, noting subtle changes in behavior, the heightened vigilance of ordinary citizens. He understood that the case's impact had extended beyond law enforcement, beyond families, embedding itself into the city's social fabric. Awareness, once passive, had become active. The city had learned, painfully, that shadows can exist undetected, that danger can be patient, and that vigilance is a responsibility of everyone who walks its streets. Forensic follow-ups continued to yield minor revelations: fingerprints in forgotten warehouses, fibers in old apartments, overlooked photographs tucked into journal margins. Each discovery reinforced the depth of Graves' planning and patience, the meticulous cataloging of lives, routines, and behaviors. Marcus studied these fragments, understanding that while the major questions had been answered, the residual details offered insights into the predator's psychology, the mechanics of his observation, and the vulnerability of a city too busy to notice the small signs that signaled danger. Marcus reflected on his own transformation. The Turner cold case had consumed him, reshaped his understanding of the city, human behavior, and the nature of obsession. Nights were haunted by shadows, dreams populated by surveillance, and reflections in windows carried the echo of the predator's watchful eye. He knew the city had changed, not in bricks or concrete, but in awareness, in vigilance, in the subtle shift of human perception that now understood how carefully danger could hide. He moved through streets with intent, noting anomalies, observing patterns, recognizing that the lessons of one cold case could prevent another. Even years later, Marcus revisited the East River warehouses, the laundromat, and the brownstone where Graves had been captured. Rain-slicked sidewalks reflected fractured neon, and shadows stretched long across brick walls. The air carried memory, remnants of observation and fear, and Marcus could feel the imprint of the past layered across the urban landscape. Each site was a silent witness, a reminder of patience, cruelty, and the persistence required to bring hidden truths to light. The city's pulse carried both menace and revelation, and Marcus walked its streets aware that vigilance was never temporary, it was perpetual. The Turner case had ended with justice, yet its legacy persisted. Shadows lingered, streets retained memory, and the city remained alive with the echoes of observation and control. Marcus Hale understood that the psychological impact extended beyond victims and families. It shaped neighborhoods, shaped awareness, and reshaped the city itself. Observers now existed in every corner, subtle and watchful, carrying forward the lessons of a cold case that had taken decades to resolve. The predator was contained, yet the imprint of his obsession would endure in the city's rhythm, a silent reminder that darkness can thrive, wait, and strike if vigilance falters. Marcus paused on a bridge overlooking the river, watching reflections ripple across the water. The city lights shimmered, fractured, and persistent, like memories suspended in time. He understood fully that cold cases are never just historical, they are living reminders, embedded in the city's architecture, in its people, in its consciousness. Lisa Turner's story, Graves' obsession, the decades of fear, and the eventual revelation had transformed more than justice, it had transformed awareness. Shadows do not vanish, they only shift, waiting for eyes keen enough to see, minds persistent enough to understand, and hearts determined enough to pursue truth relentlessly. Years had passed, yet the city remained haunted in subtle ways. Marcus Hale walked familiar streets with the weight of memory pressing against him, a constant reminder that shadows do not simply disappear when a predator is captured. Graves was behind bars, justice served on paper, yet the residue of obsession lingered in alleys, reflected in windows, and whispered through empty stairwells. Every street corner, every darkened doorway seemed to carry a fragment of the past, a silent witness to decades of patient predation. The city itself had absorbed the terror, its pulse now forever altered by the Turner cold case, its rhythm imbued with vigilance born of fear and awareness. Even ordinary routines were tinged with caution. Pedestrians hesitated before stepping into poorly lit streets. Parents watched children with a keener eye. Business owners recalled the faint presence of strangers loitering, of movements unnoticed at the time, now understood as threads in a pattern of observation. Marcus noted each detail, the city's collective awareness growing, shaped by decades-long trauma. Graves' meticulous surveillance had left a psychological blueprint, and though he was contained, the blueprint persisted in the behaviors, instincts, and vigilance of those who walked the streets. Marcus revisited old sites connected to the case, the laundromat, the warehouses, the brownstone. Rain slicked the streets, reflecting fractured neon light across puddles. Shadows stretched and recoiled in the corners of vision, and Marcus felt a strange duality, the relief of closure, and the persistent unease that darkness can endure beyond containment. Evidence, once abundant, had been catalogued, yet the minutiae, the overlooked photographs, the small objects, the faint traces of presence remained embedded in urban memory. Even a city teeming with life could not erase the marks of patient observation and deliberate control. In a quiet evening at Lisa Turner's apartment, now preserved as a testament to memory and closure, Marcus examined photographs, letters, and mementos. The objects seemed ordinary, yet each carried the weight of history, of lives surveilled and altered. He thought of the meticulous planning, the patient tracking, the cold calculation that had defined Graves' actions. Even with justice executed, the city's consciousness had changed. Awareness had sharpened, instincts heightened, and the lessons of the cold case had etched themselves into the social fabric, altering behaviors, perceptions, and the rhythm of everyday life. Marcus walked the East River path where he had first traced Graves' steps. Fog rolled in from the water, obscuring streetlights, turning familiar routes into surreal landscapes of shadow and reflection. He imagined the predator observing, even from behind bars, cataloging, planning, and maintaining control in the abstract. Shadows seemed to move with intent, the wind whispering faint echoes of past vigilance. The city's pulse was alive with memory, carrying the invisible residue of fear and observation, a reminder that even when one threat is neutralized, vigilance must persist indefinitely. The press occasionally revisited the story, recounting lessons learned, reporting on community vigilance, and highlighting law enforcement reforms. Headlines reminded the public that shadows could endure, that patience is a weapon in the hands of the obsessive, and that ordinary lives can be observed, catalogued, and threatened by those who operate quietly. Marcus watched these reports, noting the lingering fear, the sharpened awareness in interviews, and the subtle changes in behavior that reflected a city forever altered by a predator who had thrived in plain sight. One final detail emerged from Graves' archive, unnoticed for decades, a photograph of Lisa in Central Park, smiling, unaware, but with a faint reflection of a figure in a nearby window. The image confirmed what Marcus had long understood: observation, calculation, and patience can leave traces that persist long after immediate threats are contained. The photograph became a chilling emblem of the predator's reach, a testament to the meticulous nature of obsession, and a stark reminder that the city, too, bears witness to what occurs in its shadows. Walking past the brownstone where Graves had been captured, Marcus felt the weight of history pressing against him. The streets were empty, the night quiet except for the distant hum of traffic and the echo of footsteps on wet pavement. Shadows stretched long across brick walls, puddles fractured light like memories shattered and reassembled. Marcus knew the story had reached resolution, yet he also understood that darkness never truly disappears. It shifts, adapts, and waits, embedded in urban rhythm, in human awareness, in the faint traces of observation left behind by those who exploit the ordinary for obsession. The Turner cold case had ended in justice, yet its legacy was enduring. Shadows persisted, streets remembered, communities were altered, and vigilance became a permanent state of mind. Marcus Hale walked the city with awareness sharpened, knowing that the lessons of one predator could prevent another, but also understanding that the urban landscape, with its anonymity and chaos, always contains the potential for observation, control, and danger. The city had learned, yet the echoes of the past whispered quietly, reminding all who would listen that darkness endures not by visibility, but by patience, and the silence of the unnoticed. The rain continued to fall, bouncing off pavement, reflecting fractured neon signs, flickering in puddles like fragmented memories of the past. Marcus paused, gazing at the skyline, listening to the distant hum of life. Shadows lingered, streets held memory, and the pulse of the city carried the quiet, persistent echo of obsession. The Turner cold case was solved, yet its lessons would endure. The predator had been caught, but the psychological imprint, the vigilance born of fear, and the awareness of darkness hidden in plain sight would remain, shaping lives, communities, and the city itself for decades to come. The city never truly sleeps, and neither did the memory of what had unfolded. Marcus Hale walked the streets of Lower Manhattan with a quiet vigilance, the weight of decades pressed into his shoulders. Even as neon lights flickered over rain-slicked pavement, shadows stretched and shifted in ways that felt alive, whispering faint echoes of past terror. The arrest of Samuel Graves had brought closure on paper, yet the city itself carried scars, invisible but permanent, etched into alleys, fire escapes, and empty storefronts where time had paused long enough for observation to flourish. In the neighborhoods where Lisa Turner and other victims had walked, subtle changes persisted. People moved differently, eyes scanning corners, lingering on reflections in windows, noticing patterns where they once saw routine. Parents taught children to recognize anomalies, commuters paused briefly in alleyways, shopkeepers remembered fleeting moments of unease. Marcus watched, noting the city's collective awareness, a tapestry of caution stitched together by fear, memory, and survival. The cold case had solved a crime, but it had also awakened the city to the hidden, patient dangers that lingered beneath ordinary life. Marcus returned to the brownstone where Graves had been captured. The building, now quiet and boarded, seemed alive with memory. Dust motes danced in the beams of his flashlight, and every creak of the floorboards echoed like the footsteps of lives observed, altered, and lost. He thought of Graves' journals, the photographs, the obsessive notes detailing every movement, every deviation, every vulnerability exploited. The predator's mind had been precise, patient, relentless. Even in incarceration, the imprint of his calculation persisted, not just on Marcus or the victims, but on the very streets themselves, on the rhythm of the city, on the vigilance of those who walked its alleys and avenues. At Lisa Turner's preserved apartment, Marcus lingered, examining photographs and letters that bore witness to a life interrupted. He imagined her presence, her routines, her laughter, her final moments of fear, and the quiet strength that had endured in memory even as her life was stolen. Each memento, each image, each note served as a reminder that closure is never absolute. Justice may be served, yet the psychological echoes, the residual terror, the awareness born of loss, remain embedded in the minds of those who survived, those who sought truth, and in the city itself. Investigators continued to comb through the residual evidence, minor leads that had been overlooked, traces that only patience and persistence could uncover. Each discovery, no matter how small, confirmed the meticulous nature of Graves' obsession. Fibers, photographs, fingerprints, each was a testament to a predator's precision and a city's complicity in silence. Marcus realized that even in triumph, the work of understanding and vigilance is perpetual, darkness leaves traces, and the responsibility to recognize and confront it does not end with incarceration. Walking the East River path, Marcus paused at a bench where Lisa had once sat. The fog rolled in from the water, turning streetlights into spectral orbs, reflections fractured like memories scattered across time. He imagined Graves watching from a distance, cataloging, calculating even now. The thought sent a shiver down his spine. Shadows lingered in corners, moved silently along walls, and the city itself seemed to exhale slowly, carrying the collective memory of fear, obsession, and vigilance. Marcus understood fully that even with closure achieved, the psychological imprint of darkness endures, shaping awareness, instincts, and behavior indefinitely. Community vigilance became routine, subtle yet persistent. Neighborhoods held meetings, residents shared stories, schools incorporated lessons of observation and awareness, and ordinary citizens moved through streets with heightened perception. Marcus observed these changes quietly, understanding that the Turner cold case had transformed more than law enforcement. It had transformed an entire urban consciousness, teaching the city that darkness thrives in plain sight, that patience is a weapon, and that observation is both a shield and a responsibility. In his office, Marcus reviewed maps and photographs one last time. Lines connected points of observation, sketches of routes, and patterns of surveillance stretched across the city like a web. He understood the predator's methodology, the discipline of calculation, the relentless patience that had allowed Graves to operate undetected for decades. Yet he also understood the city's resilience, the courage of investigators, and the persistence of those who refused to let the cold case fade into obscurity. The balance between darkness and vigilance was delicate, fragile, yet eternal. As night fell over the city, Marcus walked streets now familiar and forever changed. Rain began to fall again, bouncing off pavement, reflecting neon lights in fractured shards. Shadows curled along walls and fire escapes, shifting subtly with the wind. He knew the story had reached its conclusion, that justice had been enacted, yet he also knew the city would always remember. Shadows linger, lessons persist, vigilance remains, and the imprint of obsession echoes through streets, neighborhoods, and the very heartbeat of urban life. The Turner cold case, once unsolved for decades, had finally yielded truth. Samuel Graves had been captured. Families had answers. Communities had learned. And yet, the city itself remained alert, wary, transformed. Shadows do not vanish, they adapt, they shift, they linger. Observation leaves traces. Patience carries consequences. Fear leaves imprints. Marcus Hale understood that the legacy of a cold case is not only in justice served, but in awareness awakened, vigilance honed, and memory preserved. The city exhaled beneath neon lights and falling rain, carrying the echoes of lives observed, lives disrupted, and justice finally realized. Marcus looked up at the skyline, reflections rippling across the river, and knew that the story, while closed, would never fully leave the streets, the buildings, or the minds of those who had lived it. Shadows persist, memories endure, and the Turner cold case, though solved, would remain an indelible part of the city's pulse, a reminder that darkness may be confronted, but it leaves its mark forever.